Now, if you guys happen to be a fan of Channel 2, as I am, you'll be very familiar with tonight's guest. Her name is Dorothy Tucker. Mrs. Tucker has worked as a reporter for CBS 2 Chicago for the past 30 years. She has covered every nook and cranny of this city and its issues, from politics and education to crime and health. Before she got to Chicago, she worked as a general assignment reporter in Pittsburgh, Denver, and Memphis. Throughout her career, she's received numerous honors and awards, including 9 local Emmys. And somehow, she's managed to do this while raising 3 children that all attend Ivy League institutions, which is no easy feat. Please welcome to the stage, Dorothy Tucker.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me this evening. When they asked me to come and be the keynote speaker, I had to ask the question, why me? And they said, because you're a role model. I'm a little black girl from the west side of Chicago. I am the product of Chicago Public Schools. I'm a proud product of Chicago Public Schools. This is home for me. My dad still lives on the west side. I have relatives who live actually in University City and Flossmoor, and cousins, and I appreciate the fact that some of you may see me as a role model, but I just, more than anything, want your children to hear the message that I am very much like you. I grew up in, well, I didn't know it was the ghetto at the time. I didn't learn it was the ghetto until I got to college. I started reading all this stuff, and they said, yeah, you lived in the ghetto. I was like, oh, okay. I grew up on the west side of Chicago, with parents from Mississippi, and it was a struggle at times, and I just really want to stress upon you that it is not a long reach from where you are to where I am. And let me make an appeal to you that if you see me as a role model, then I encourage you to follow in my public footsteps. I say public because I'm not going to tell you what's in my closet. Meaning that I encourage you, if you are young enough and you haven't gone to college and you're not quite sure what career you should pursue, you really should consider television. If you are still young enough to make a career change, you should consider television. If you are a mother or grandmother, father, uncle, and you know someone who you think has the potential to do this job, I would encourage you to reach out to them and tell them to consider this thing that we call television, because there are not enough of us who look like us who are in this industry. And it is extremely important that if our stories are to continue to be told in a way that is respectful and is indicative of who we are, then we need to be a part of the platform telling our stories. So again, if you see me, then follow me and join this industry. I want to say congratulations to all of those who've been nominated, and in advance, say congratulations to the winners. You are all winners tonight, otherwise you would not be here. I have been with Channel 2 now for about 30 years. I've been there long enough to have been married 25 of those 30 years to the same man. I gave him a break tonight and told him he didn't have to come. We have raised 3 children in those 25 years. I've helped raise my niece. I've lost my best friend, my mother. I have been fortunate enough to know one of the most God-fearing women on earth who has since left, my grandmother. And what I thought I would do tonight is to share with you some of the lessons that I have learned in the 30 years that I have grown returning home. I actually have been a television reporter for almost 37 years. I was fortunate enough to get a job right out of college. I attended Northwestern and was fortunate to get a job right out of school, left for about 7 years, and then returned home to Chicago, which is what I always wanted because this is where my heart is. My message today is primarily to the young black women. And as I said before, you are all winners. Lesson 1, to those of you who are late teens, early 20s, you don't have children, you don't have a responsibility, this is your time. This is your time to be selfish, self-centered, and to think only of you. That's not to say that you are to be disobedient to your parents, rude to your friends, but you've worked hard. You've made lots of sacrifices for college. You've paid a lot of money. And this is when you begin to lay the foundation for whatever dream it is that you have. This is the time that you make the tough decisions to say, everything I do is going to be about staying on the path that will make me the success that I want to be. And I know the words selfish and self-centered are not nice, kind words. So when I say that, I mean what I want you to do is to remember that you've got to put you first and make you the best you can be in order to be the best for someone else somewhere down the line. And it's tough because you're young, because you are falling in love, and because you have boyfriends. But this is a time that you have to say to him, if you love me, you'll wait for me. If you love me, you will support me. And if he loves you, he will. Lesson number 2. If you are about to enter the world, find a job, getting a job, you have to adjust your attitude. It is not your candy store. Millennials have a reputation for being the me society. You can read a lot of reports about how kids today feel entitled. In fact, there are studies that they send out to managers and how to deal with the millennials. I contend that because we're young and we don't know, so many times, too many of us, even, when I was younger, we came in with the kind of attitude that said, oh, you want me, I've got this job. And we don't embrace where we are, and we don't really give 150%. And I just want you to learn from the mistake that I made. I was very, very fortunate to enter television at a time when there weren't a lot of African Americans in the industry. It was right around 77, when I graduated from college. And it was easier to find a job in this industry. And I found my first job in Peoria. And I went in with a very funky attitude. I did my job. I delivered my stories. I did not like Peoria. I hated Peoria. It was really the first time that I had been that far away from home for an extended period of time. I missed my family. I missed home. I would, every weekend, as soon as I got off of work, or and I think I was off probably Monday, Tuesdays or something, and I would drive back home. And the people that I worked with, it was clear that I didn't want to be there. And as hard as I had worked in college, and I did what I'm asking you to do, I put myself first. I did the internships. I took every internship I could find when I was in college. I volunteered for radio stations on the weekends. I got the best grades. I gave it everything I had because this is what I wanted. And when the young man came along and said, "Baby, marry me," I said, "No, honey, you're gonna have to wait." I did all those right things. I got that first job. And I got fired from that first job because of my attitude. Because I did not come in with the kind of spirit that said, I want to do the job, I want to be here, and I'm willing to do whatever. I did it and I left. So I want you to learn lesson 2 from me. It was a lot of work that I put into something that I lost that I really wanted. Now, fortunately, I was able to find a second job, and I've been a different employee ever since. Lesson number 3, don't make your career decisions based on your personal drama. I left Peoria and moved to Denver. I was in Denver for a couple of years, so here I am, 21, 22, 23 years old, and things are going extremely well. I'm in a great market. That's what we call television cities. They're not cities or markets. I'm in a great market. I'm doing great work. I can see that I am growing. I get a job in Memphis, and my family is only 100 miles from Memphis. It was great to be around family again. It was great to be in the South. I was having an absolutely fabulous time, and then I fell in love. And he asked me to marry him, and I hesitated, and he ended our relationship. That was my personal life. Well, my professional life, I was being groomed to be the main anchor. I'd been promoted to weekend anchor. I was a star reporter. I was being groomed to be the #1 anchor. And when he broke my heart, I went to my boss and said, I'm leaving. I don't want to be in Memphis anymore. And this man sat me down and he said, don't do this. He said, don't do this. He said, I believe in you. You're going to be my star. I was like, nope, I can't be in a city with him. I'm heartbroken. And I left. And I found a job in Pittsburgh. Here's a mistake that I made. It was a personal decision, and I changed my path in my career. I did not learn a valuable piece of my craft. I'm a hell of a reporter. I could have been, maybe I would have been in Memphis today, God forbid. But that's probably why I hesitated. It was like, Memphis? I don't think so. But yeah, I have those issues too. But my point is, I should have learned the craft. I should have stayed there a little longer. I should have listened to him. And I didn't learn that craft. And as I went along, it became harder and harder to really learn it. And eventually I did, but I could have had it at that time. And perhaps I would have been making millions of dollars, but instead, stupid. So that's lesson number 3. Don't, think about it in terms of money. And, you know, but the truth of the matter is you really just want to sit and make the decision based on your head, not your heart, when it comes to that. Lesson number 4 is for those of you who are married, older, you have children. I want you to accept the fact that you are not Superwoman. You're in school, you're trying to do it all. And as mothers, when we are at the job, we feel guilty because we're not able to go on the field trip. And when we're on the field trip and we take that day off, we feel guilty because we're not working on that special project, or we passed up that overtime. And one of the things that I think I had to learn was to ask for help and to know that it is okay to ask for help. My husband traveled a lot. So a lot of times it was me, the job, and 3 kids trying to make it all work. And what I know today is that, you know, the people that I asked, the friends, the relatives, that at the time, you know, sometimes I felt like, well, they think that perhaps I'm incapable of doing all of this. Now that my children have gone, and I am ecstatic to help my nieces with their babies and my nephews with their babies, I know that the veterans don't mind. And so you're not there yet, but from my viewpoint, I want you to know it is okay to ask for help. You know, they say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community to raise a family. And lesson number 5 has absolutely nothing to do with the job. It is all about raising children for those mothers who are in the midst of that. I want to remind you that you are not their friend. You're their parent. It is tough. It is the hardest job in the world to be a parent. That's why I kept working. It's like, oh my God. But, you know, I'm only kidding. I spent a lot of time with my kids. I did not pursue a lot of the prime assignments. I did not pursue being an anchor and making all the money because I wanted to be home in the evenings with my babies. I wanted to be there for the soccer and the football and for the dozen of different things that my daughter participated in, and for the homework, and to get to the back-to-school activities and all of that. So you give up a little bit of the career, you try to make it work as best you can. But throughout all of that, it takes a lot to do the tough love thing. I remember my oldest son, who is now 24 years old, when he was a junior in high school, I was having a very difficult time getting him to understand the importance of the ACT. You know, he just did not want to study for it, and I just wanted to choke him. And I literally lost sleep one night, and you know, I had been going back and forth and, you know, and trying to persuade him and trying to give him all the reasons, and, you know, it wasn't working. And I woke up that next morning and I had not slept well, and I am not kidding. Fortunately I have photos of myself because the station gives them out. But I took a picture of myself, and I went to his room and I put it on his wall, and we had some darts downstairs. I put the photo on his wall, I gave him the darts, and I said, you know, I had to make a decision last night. I either had to be your mother or your friend. Here are the darts. You are not gonna like me. Baby, it's about to be a rough ride. And I was on his behind. I was on him 24/7, because this is the junior year. You are not gonna mess this one up. When the second one came along, his freshman year, this child had been doing very well until freshman year. And all of a sudden, he lost his mind and probably forgot who his mother was. And I went to school, and I'm listening to the teachers, and they're doing that, oh, yeah, well, you know, he would be doing well, blah, 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 if he showed up for class. It's like, what? Excuse me? So we sat that child down and said, you know what? Since you don't want to do right at school, I took away everything. I didn't take away the electronics. No, I didn't. I took away his lifeline to his friends. There was no more going out. No friends. I am not joking. And he thought, and it was, you cannot go out on the weekends. You can't go out in the afternoons. You want to play at school, you better have all the fun you can have. Because when you come home, it's over. And it won't change until the C's turn to B's. And he said to me, but Mom, it's the beginning of the marking period. Oh, well. And, he hasn't forgiven me yet, and he's 21. I just want you to know that. My son, poor child, he was on punishment for almost 2 years. And I was like, he said, like, how long? When you ain't got no more C's. You bring me a car that ain't got no C's, and we on the same page. And he just kept getting one in something, And needless to say, he was in the honors classes, but I'm like, you don't go honors, then drop off the face of the earth. Don't work that way. So he was on punishment for 2 years. Still, by the time his junior year came, he figured it out, and he did well. And let me just tell you what tough love leads you to. My boys, my 24-year-old one, he graduated from Princeton last year. And the hard-headed one, he's a senior at Yale. Which brings me to little girl, my daughter. And that is lesson number 5 in my final lessons as I wrap up. The one thing that I think we as an African-American community, I don't know whether we're ashamed of it, I don't know whether we think something is wrong with it, but we don't take advantage of the mental health services that are available to us. Yeah? And I don't get it, because if you work for a corporation, a university, if you have insurance, it's covered. They give it to you because you paid for it. So it is important that we get beyond this stigma and we take advantage of it. Because everything I told you about being a tough parent did not work with that child. I took away everything. She was practically walking to school. Because I'm like, she wouldn't do right, I would take away the car. She wouldn't do right, I'd make her get on the bus. I'd make her get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was like nothing was working. And because nothing was working, I finally said, I'm missing something. Something's wrong here that I've just overlooked. And I said, we got to go talk to somebody, because you're not really talking to me, and I'm trying the usual stuff. It's not working, so let's go figure this out. And I took her, and it was about that age where they all kind of become defiant. She was a senior in high school, and I made her go, 6 or 7 weeks. She met me downtown. I got off work at 6, we were there at 6, and the advantage is that you're talking to a stranger. I tried taking her to church, and the problem was I then had to see Reverend next Sunday. So you're kind of hesitant about what you're going to really tell him, because you got to see him.
So I found it a lot easier, and that's the great thing about the mental health services. They're strangers, and you won't run into them because they're not in your community. So you can tell them anything. So here we were, talking every week to this stranger, and it was really a great thing because I had an opportunity. She had a chance to tell this woman who we didn't know what she was angry about and what she didn't like and how she felt. And I had an opportunity to tell that stranger how she made me feel when she did that, and how I looked at her when she did that, and how hurt she made me, and the pain. And then she would come back and explain things, and I found myself looking at her and going, I never knew. And I'm thinking, I didn't realize that you felt that way. I didn't realize that you saw it that way. And she looked at me, and I could see when the tears would come, that she was saying, I didn't know I hurt you. I didn't know that that really hurt you. Now, and my daughter is a freshman at the University of Pennsylvania. And I know it's going to continue to be a rocky road with all of them, as we go through life. Nothing's perfect. But I went to see her last weekend, and I do a mommy-daughter with her because, I don't know, they're all my babies, so I spent a lot of time on the East Coast, with them. But we were watching television, and, we were in the hotel, just hanging out, watching TV, and she did one of those things that she used to do when she was a child, and she reached out, and when she does that, that just means I want to hold your hand, and she just held my hand. And it was just the best moment that I've had in a long time, because that was our special thing when she was growing up. My sister, in closing, my sister once, as we were going through life, and you go through your ups and downs, and sometimes tough times happen, my sister taught me a prayer that is a favorite prayer of mine now. And she said, you want to ask the Lord to allow the words that come from your soul touch the hearts of those who are listening. And that is my prayer this evening, that perhaps something that I have said will make a difference and have an impact in your life. Thank you.
Ms. Tucker, would you please come back to the stage? On behalf of Governor State University and the Student Affairs Department, we would like to commemorate your keynote address by giving you this award. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.